Uh, as Randy is saying in the chat room and others, good evening, good morning to everyone. I'm glad that we have another day here that we are able to gather through the power and the miracle of modern technology. It's good that modern technology is able to take care of all these, what would be called in the past in Buddhist texts as the worldly mundane siddhis accomplishments, of which there are 8 listed in the traditional list. For example, they talk about the power of flight. So you can like travel long distances in a very short time, you know. And so that, you know, modern technology has done that for us. So we don't need to waste our effort, you know, on accomplishing mundane siddhis. It used to be that, you know, once upon a time, the people who left, like say New York or Boston to go to California, maybe half those people will not arrive, you know. Some got killed, some died of disease, some decided to stop in the middle. Usually no option like that, you know, when you take a flight from Newark. Well, that is if your flight ever comes in Newark. From Newark Airport, you know, it's pretty direct. You get to California in like about 5.5 hours. That's the power of flight, you know. And they talked about the power to hear over long distances, you know. If Zoom is not that, what is it, right? The power to like appear wherever you want to. Yeah, if Zoom is not that, what is that siddhi? So modern siddhis have taken care of all these mundane. Mundane doesn't have to be bad. Mundane just means, you know, those things that kind of come and go, those things that are ultimately unreliable. So what can we rely on? Hopefully we can rely on our minds, not as they are right now, the minds that as they are right now, but the mind as it gets more and more cleared and cleansed of karmic obscurations, cleanse of all the different levels and forms of obscurations. So on the relative level, we're working with that. But we're working with that always with an understanding, or always needing to maintain the understanding that the nature of this mind itself is luminous. It's clear. Even in the earliest layer of Buddhist teachings, already the Buddha made references to this innately clear, luminous nature of the mind. The expression in Pali Sanskrit is Chitta Prabhaswara. Chitta Prabhaswara is that the Chitta, the mind, is luminous. In one very famous passage, the Buddha says, it's said in a pair. Often in these early scriptures, you have the Buddha speaking, like being repetitive. In part, it's because these are oral texts. So there is a certain style of composing, so to say, and delivering oral texts that makes them more easily memorized. And one of the devices is to have things repeated. Yeah. So those of us who are not familiar with that might look at some of these early texts, early sutras attributed to the Buddha as rather repetitive, but they had a purpose there, why it needs to be repetitive. And so one pair of sayings is like Buddha says, "O monks, the mind is luminous. Chitta prabhasara. The mind is luminous. But those who have not developed themselves, this luminosity remains covered over, and therefore they are ordinary beings." Then the next verse, he says, again repeating, "The mind is luminous." So see, in both situations, mind is luminous. Then he says, "For those who diligently developed themselves, then they are free from the obscurations, and therefore they are the noble ones. They are the noble ones. They are the Aryas. And they are the ones who have been freed from confusion." So here is quite clearly that it's not a matter of something that was not already clear and luminous being turned into clear and luminous. So in that sense, you could say, objectively, nature of mind is already the way it is. So then in our tradition, it says the characteristics of this nature of mind is that it's empty, it's luminous. Its luminosity points to its emptiness, and its emptiness makes its luminosity possible. Empty here means, it's not fixed or stuck. It's liberated, it's freed. So this freedom, this luminosity, is not something that we have to newly create. Of course, various Buddhist traditions would articulate this in slightly different ways. Some traditions actually say, you have to cultivate. So they emphasize more the development, I would call it the development model of Buddha nature. Gagyupa traditions tend to emphasize more the discovery model of Buddha nature, right? The development model and the discovery model. The development model is to say, put effort into developing these qualities, because the way they articulate Buddha nature, they say Buddha nature makes it possible for these qualities to arise. But if you don't develop, these qualities will not. They are not there, they say, on the ground level, they say. They're not there on the ground level as actuality, but they are there on the ground level as potentiality that can be brought into full fruition. The discovery model of relating to Buddha nature says these qualities are already there, even on the ground level. And so what happens on the path level is not that you are adding to it or making that which is not there be there. But rather on the path level, what you are doing is you are removing that which does not belong there, which is in our context here, karmic obscurations. We remove that which is not there, so that that which is there no longer become obscured. If you ask me personally, I don't think it's necessary to engage in endless debate as to whether ultimately is the discovery model more right or the development model more right. If we get caught up in that, then the fundamental critique of the Buddha on grasping is, he says, even grasping at the methods will give rise to further suffering, further entanglement. So he says, use these teachings skillfully. Of course, the scholars and the defenders of the various lineages and traditions, it's their job to go debate these issues. You and me, we have to really think, you know. Do we want to be scholars or do we want to be free? Yeah, like that story, you know. Go ahead, debate that guy, debate the corpse, you know. But it's good nonetheless to. So this is not saying don't learn. This is saying learn as much as you can, but also know, you know, how to use what you have learned, how to put to good use what we are learning. Page 4, yeah. In the space before me, I envision the Buddha, Lord of sages, surrounded by unfathomable root and lineage gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Dungi namga tumpa tupe wampola korosa jugi lama dang sanje changsen pakdu mebe kone shukbar so. Antonio, can you please read next section?
I and all other sentient beings, extensive as space, take refuge in the root of and lineage gurus. We take refuge in perfect Buddhas, the transcendent conquerors. We take refuge in the holy Dharma, free from attachment and peaceful nirvana. We take refuge in the noble assembly of bodhisattvas endowed with realization and liberation.
Dadan Rova Margyu Namge Tadan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Zawa Dan Gyube Lama Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Zobe Sanje Jum Dende Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Shiva Jadya Dambe Jo Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Ridro Nidin Gyase Pape Zo Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Dadan Rova Margyu Namge Tadan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Zawa Dan Gyube Lama Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Zobe Sanje Chon Dende Namla Gyabzu Jiwo Shiva Chadya Dambe Cho Namla Gyabzu Jiwo Ridro Niden Gyase Pabe So Namla Gyabzu Jiwo Dada Rowa Margyu Namge Dada Nyampe Semjen Tamje Zawa Dan Kyube Lama Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Zobe Sanje Chom Dende Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Shiwa Tja Dambe Jo Namla Kyabzu Jiwo Ridro Niden Kyabzu Pape Zo Namla Kyabzu Jiwo. Sandra, please, the next section.
May all sentient beings who have not realized that a self and all appearances are by nature dharmadhatu have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness which is free from suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Dada Nawa Tamche Jugi Yingi Ranjin Yimbala De Dharma Dube Senjen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyudan Dempar Gyuji Dungyal Dan Dungyal Gi Gyudan Trawa Gyuji Dungyal Mepe Dewa Dame Trawa Gyuji Nirin Chada Nidan Trawe Tanyon La Nepar Gyuji Dada Nawa Tamche Jugi Yingi Ranjin Impala De Dharma Tobe Semjen Tamche Devada Dewe Gyudan Tempara Gyuji Dunya Dan Dunya Gi Gyudan Rawa Gyuji Dunya Mepe Dewa Dame Rawa Gyuji Nirin Chada Nidan Trawe Tanyola Nepara Gyuji Nawa Tamche Jugi Yingi Ranshin Yimbala De Dharma Tobe Senjen Tamche Devada Dewe Gyudan Dempara Gyurji Dunya Dan Dunya Gi Gyudan Drawa Gyurji Dunya Mepe Dewa Dame Drawa Gyurji Nirin Chada Nidan Drawe Tan Leon La Nebra Gyurji. Randy, the next section.
May I swiftly attain the sublime state of perfectly complete awakening for the sake of all mother sentient beings. For this purpose, I shall make offerings to the 35 Buddhas. Having invoked their heart pledge, I shall engage in the practice of confessing downfalls.
Semjen Tamche Gi Dundun Yuwar Yanda Bara Zobe Sanje Gi Kumpang Rinpoche To Parje De Jiddu Dewa Sheba Sumchu Sanga Chujing Tudang Kune Tungwa Shabe Jogala Zung Parja. Now the objects of refuge dissolve into each of us. And in that moment, let your mind and body settle. Put aside all worries, stresses. Put aside all busyness. And reflect on how, for the benefit of all beings, how we are inspired by, at the very least, the idea of, for the benefit of all beings, I am going to engage in, I'm going to practice this practice of clearing karmic obscurations, clearing karmic obstacles, clearing the afflictive emotions that cause pain and unhappiness in our lives and the lives of others. That now, at the very least, we are inspired to consider the possibility of doing our
practices of doing everything that we do for the benefit and the happiness of all beings. Even just entertaining this as an idea, as an ideal, opens up space in the tightness of our hearts, in the narrowness of our minds. In the suffocation that we often experience when we let all these passing, rising, ceasing, coming, going conditions occupy us more than the natural lifespan. We keep renewing their lifespan. And so they start to fill up and fill up and fill up. And pretty soon we have no place to even rest. Or at least we feel that way. But now, knowing that simply by knowing a little bit about nature of mind, we can trust in that nature. Trust enough to now give a chance to body and mind to settle into their own places. To settle evenly, to settle naturally. And to be content to abide in that state and to begin to discover the natural joy of that state. How good it is to be alive, how good it is to have met the Dharma, how good it is to be inspired to apply the Dharma, how good it is that we are doing this now. All of this we do because we think perhaps this will help all of us. Now to the bottom of page 9. Lucrezia, can you please read that section?
Okay. Compassionate, transcendent conquerors dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed us. In the past, when you, the 35 compassionate, transcendent conquerors, engage in Bodhisattva deeds, you arouse bodhicitta and vow to cleanse the obscurations of wandering beings in times when the 5 degenerations are rampant. Following this pledge, in order to protect us helpless wandering beings, today we invite you to safeguard and stand by us as our last resort. Having come, regard us with eyes of compassion and purify our faults and downfalls. please come and cause our store of merit to increase.
Jujuna Zube Jumdende Tuje Jembo Dan Demba Namda La Gong Su Jumdende Tuje Jembo Dan Demba Zumju Zanga Boge Nam Unjang Ju Zembe Jeba Jubeze Ningma Nga Do Dowa Namki Deba Jongwar Duge Jing Tungdam Jidra Shiva Deshindu Denda Jagome Kidowa Gyobe Ledu Gongkya Dam Punindu Jinduen Jin Jina Tuje Chengi Jine Dajagi Nintun Tong Jonshin Sonam Ge Sobelwe Ledu Jompa to the bottom of page 22. Now, in the presence of the 35 Buddhas, we recollect their qualities of body, speech, and mind. And the text here describes them as follows. All are dressed in the style of a renunciate Nirmanakaya and adorned with the 32 excellent marks and 80 minor marks, such as the crown, protuberance, and bills on the feet. With their 60 aspects of melodious speech, they proclaim the clear sound of the Mahayana teachings. As their minds do not move from Vajra like Samadhi, they clearly understand all objects of knowledge in the three times. Their bodies are garbed in the three Dharma robes, and garlands of light shine like the sun from their bodies to alleviate the pain of miserable destinies. With eyes open wide like lotus petals, they behold me and all sentient beings with great compassion. Upon merely beholding them, these great beings effortlessly accomplish the temporary and ultimate purposes of all sentient beings. Thus, they abide with legs in Vajra posture. As we raise beautiful jewel parasols with golden handles, delightfully adorned all around with pleasing forms so lovely to behold, we make unceasing offerings to the lords of sages. Page 36. From middle of that page begins the seven-limb puja. Omar, can you please read from the middle of that page?
To those, in as many words as exist in the 10 directions, all of the lions among humans, the Tathagatas, of 3 times. To all of them without exception, I prostrate with faithful body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer for excellent conduct, may all the victorious ones vividly appear in my mind. With bodies as numerous as atoms in the universe, I respectfully bow down and pay homage to all the victorious ones. In the single act of
Engineer Suda Juju Jidena Dushan Sheba Mi Senge Haki Malu Deda Tamjela Ludanga Ye Dawe Jagi Wo Zambu Jube Monlam Tomdagi Yawa Tamje Yigi Mushindu Shingi Dune Lura Dubaye Yawa Gunla Ramtu Jasu. The next section on page 37, Claudia.
In a single atom residing amidst their Bodhisattva sons, there are as many Buddhas as there are atoms in the entire world. In the same way, I imagine the entire Dharma expanse to be completely filled with victorious ones. With inexhaustible oceans of praise and oceans of melodious sounds extolling the noble qualities of the victorious ones, I praise all the Sugatas. To all those worthy of honor, while offering praise with supreme faith, I bow unceasingly with bodies as numerous as dust motes in the universe.
Dunji Dena Dunye Sanje Na Sanje Shege Una Shubhada Deta Jugi Ina Malupa Tamche Gyawa Dagi Gawa Mo Deda Aba Mitze Gyazo Nam Yangi Yengla Gyazo Dragunji Gyawa Kunji Yonte Rabzuji Deva Sheba Tamje Dangi Do Ja Oba Tamje La Shindu Gungi Ramegi Ludu Baye Namgundu Chodu Debe Tobarji. Page 38, Cecile.
With the best of flowers and exquisite garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, divine lights, and the finest incense, I make offerings to the victorious ones. With the finest garments, sweet fragrances, and powdered incense, piled high as Mount Meru, and with everything in exalted and sublime display, I make offerings to the victorious ones. I also imagine vast as and unsurpassed offerings made to all of the victorious ones. Through the power of my faith in excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to all of the victorious ones.
Medo Damba Tengwa Damba Dan Sinien Namdan Juba Dujodan Marme Jodan Dubo Damba Ye Gyawa Deda Lanin Jobarji Namsa Damba Namdan Rejodan Jema Burma Rera Nyampada Kobe Kepara Pape Jogunji Gyawa Deda Layan Jobarji Chopa Gana Lame Gyajewa Deda Gyawa Tamje Layamo Zambo Jula Debe Tomdai Gyawa Kunla Jasa Jobarji. Now, page 48, starting from the middle of this page 48. Jasper.
I confess whatever wrong I have done with my body, speech, and also mind, while being overpowered by attachment, hatred, and ignorance. I rejoice in the merit of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, the solitary Buddhas, those on the path of learning, those beyond learning, and all beings.
Toja shedan demo wangini ludang adan deshin yiki yam tipa dagi geba jeba deda tamje dagi soso sha jojo gyawa kundan sanje se rangya namdan lodan me lodan jowa kunji sonang kangla yang deda kunji jese dagi yang. Adriana, page 49. Adriana, if you are there, you have to unmute.
Yes, I go. All of those lights in the world of the 10 directions who having passed through the stage of Buddhahood attain awakening free from the attachment. To all of these protectors, I beseech you to turn the unsurpassed wheel of Dharma. To all of those who intend to demonstrate Nirvana with my paths joined together, I beseech you to remain for the benefit and happiness of all beings, for as many kalpas as there are atoms in the universe. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered from prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I dedicate it to the awakenings of all beings.
Joju jiden rumada janju rinpa sanje machane gombo deda dagi tamje la kolo lana mepa korwa gun yangen dadun kanshe deda la rowa kun la benshin tewe jir Kyoba shingi tuni zubar ya dagi telmo rabja sovarji chasa wada chuchin shabada jise yirang kushin sovayi kewa chungse dagi chisaba tamche sobe chanchu chirmo. In accordance with the 35 Sugatas, the aspiration to exhaust the karmic veils of those who remember their excellent names and pay homage to them, please bestow the fruits of this wish. Now the main practice, starting at the bottom of page 50. Throughout all time, all sentient beings take refuge in the Guru, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. Homage to the Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, the perfectly complete Buddha Shakyamuni. Next section, Tracy.
Homage to the one who has fully conquered with Vajra essence. Homage to jewel radiating light. Homage to the sovereign king of Nagas. Homage to the leader of the brave.
Next, Samantha.
Homage to glorious joy. Homage to jewel fire. Homage to jewel moonlight. Homage to meaningful to behold.
Next, Anna Isabel.
Homage to jewel moon, homage to the stainless one, homage to glorious giving, homage to the pure one.
The top of page 52, Vicky.
Homage to giving of purity. Homage to the water god. Homage to the god of water gods. Homage to good glory.
Next, Daniela.
Homage to glorious sandalwood, homage to infinite brilliance, homage to glorious light, homage to glory without sorrow.
Next, Christina. Middle of 52. Homage to sun. Christina, if you are there, you have to unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted, but I don't know where we're at. So
52, homage to the sun of non-craving. A little bit in the middle section.
homage. Homage to the sun of non-craving. Homage to the glory of flowers. Want me to go further?
Joyce, next.
Homage to the Tathagata, radiant pure display of complete omniscience.
Next, Rowan.
Homage to the Tathagata, completely omniscient display of lotus light. Homage to glory of wealth. Homage to glory of mindfulness.
Then Judy, and then waiting. Judy, if you're there, you have to unmute.
Sorry. Homage to the widely renowned, glorious name. Homage to the king with the banner that crowns the sovereign.
Waiting.
Homage to the glorious one who fully subdued. Homage to sublime victor in battle.
Melissa, and then Larry.
Homage to the one gone beyond through complete victory. Homage to glorious illuminating array. Homage to all subduing lotus jewel.
Homage to the king of Mount Meru, the Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, abiding on a jeweled lotus.
All these and all the Tathagatas, all Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions, and all the Buddhas, the transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world, please heed me. Laura Herman, can you do half of page 54? Unmute.
Former laws without beginning, and all the states of birth within samsara, I have committed evil deeds. I have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. I have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions. I have incited others to steal and found joy in their thefts. I have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls.
I have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds, have incited others to enter it, and have found joy in their submission. Mariana, half of page 55. Obscured by all these karmic veils, I and sentient beings have gone to hell, have gone to the birthplaces of animals, have gone to the worlds of hungry ghosts, have taken birth in savage places as barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties. I have turned to corrupted views and karmic obscurations from having failed to please the Buddhas I encountered. Rodrigo, the rest of this page.
In the presence of the Bhagavan Buddha, wisdom mind, before their eyes, in their witness, before the authentic ones, the all-knowing one, the all-seeing one. I disclose all these karmic obscurations. I declare them. I shall not hide them. And hereafter I shall sever and bend them.
Miriam, page 56, half of that page.
All Buddhas transcendent conquerors, please heed me. I gather all the roots of virtue I have accumulated in cyclic existence through having acted generously towards another samsaric sentient being, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm, together with an root of virtue from having guarded moral discipline, any root virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, and any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta, the mind set on supreme awakening.
Anna Elisa, page 57, half that page.
And any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness accumulated in these and former lives without beginning within samsara. All these, I dedicate them perfectly, supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening.
Alexander?
Just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication. And just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit.
Kimberly, page 58.
I exhort and supplicate all Buddhas that I may attain unsurpassed, most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge in all those with praiseworthy qualities, as infinite as a vast ocean, all the Buddhas supreme among humans who exist at present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared.
Now let's go back to page 50. Here I am going to first do the first section, the paying homage section in Tibetan. So those of you who want to do some prostrations now, this is a good time. Then the other two sections we will read, we'll have different people read the other sections, yeah? Zemjen tamje tambara lama la kyabsu jiwa sanje la kyabsu jiwa chola kyabsu jiwa genden la kyabsu jiwa chum dende deshin shepa drajumba yanda bara zobe sanje shakya tubala cha selo durje ningpo ratu jumbala Chasalo rinjen ojola chasalo lo wangi gyambola chasalo pawo dela chasalo pergela chasalo rinjen mela chasalo rinjen daola chasalo tongwa donyon la chasalo rinjen dawa la chasalo Dima mepa la chasalo pa jin la chasalo changpa la chasalo changpe jin la chasalo chu la chasalo chu le la chasalo piao zang la chasalo tsenden piao la chasalo sije taye la chasalo o piao la chasalo Nyanye me pe piao la chasalo zeme ki bu la chasalo
Mito bella chasalo, Dijin Shepa Zambe Ozen Namba Ropa, Gumbara Gembala chasalo, Dijin Shepa Beme Ozen Namba Roba, Gumbara Gembala chasalo, Nora Bella chasalo. Drembe bella chasalo, Zembe Jindu Yondrala chasalo. Wambo dogi gyao zengi gyao bola chasalo, Jindu number numbe bella chasalo. Yule Jindu number gyawala chasalo, number numbe shebe bella chasalo. Kune nawa gobe bella chasalo, Rinjen bema number numbala chasalo. Dijin sheba drajumba yanda parazobe sanje rimboche. Bema la rabdu shubari wangi gyabola chasalo. All these and all the Tathagatas, all the Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions, and all the Buddhas, transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world, please heed me. In this and former lives without beginning, in all the states of birth within samsara, I have committed evil deeds, I have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. I have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions. I have incited others to steal, found joy in their thefts. I have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls. I have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds. I have incited others to enter it, and have found joy in their submission. Page 55. Rowan, if you're there, can you read page 55? If you can unmute and read page 55.
Sorry about that. Obscured by all these karmic veils, I and sentient beings have gone to hell, have gone to the birthplaces of animals, have gone to the worlds of hungry ghosts, have taken birth in savage places as barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties. I have turned to corrupted views and karmic obscurations from having failed to please the Buddhas I encountered. In the presence of the Bhagavan Buddha, wisdom mind, before their eyes, in their witness, before the authentic ones, the all-knowing one, the all-seeing ones, I disclose all these karmic obscurations. I declare them. I shall not hide them, and hereafter I shall sever and bind them.
Now page 56. Cecile?
All Buddhas, transcendent conquerors, please heed me. I gather all the roots of virtue I have accumulated in cycles existence through having acted generously towards another samsaric sentient beings, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm, together with any root of virtue from having guarded moral discipline, any root virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to fully maturity, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta, the mindset on supreme awakening.
57, Leonard?
And any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness accumulated in these and former lives without beginning within samsara. All these I dedicate them perfectly, supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening. Just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication, and just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit.
Top of page 58. Elena, if you can unmute and read.
I exhort and supplicate all Buddhas that I may attain unsurpassed for most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge in those with praiseworthy qualities and infinite as vast ocean. All the Buddhas supreme among humans who exist and present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared.
We will go back to page 50. And this time I'm going to do the whole practice in English. So again, if you want to do some frustrations during this time, you can do that and not worry that you might be called to read. So I'm going to do this whole practice in English now, starting on page 50. Throughout all time, all sentient beings take refuge in the Guru, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. Homage to the Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, the perfectly complete Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the one who has fully conquered with Vajra essence. Homage to jewel radiating light. Homage to sovereign king of Nagas. Homage to leader of the brave. Homage to glorious joy. Homage to jewel fire. Homage to jewel moonlight. Homage to meaningful to behold. Homage to jewel moon. Homage to the stainless one. Homage to glorious giving. Homage to pure one. Homage to giving of purity, homage to water god, homage to the god of water gods, homage to good glory, homage to glorious sandalwood, homage to infinite brilliance, homage to glorious light, homage to glory without sorrow, homage to sun of non-craving, homage to glory of flowers, homage to Tathagata, radiant pure display of complete omniscience, homage to Tathagata, completely omniscient display of lotus light. Homage to glory of wealth, homage to glory of mindfulness, homage to widely renowned glorious name, homage to the King victory banner that crowns the sovereign. Homage to glorious one who fully subdues, homage to sublime victor in battle, homage to one gone beyond through complete victory, homage to glorious illuminating array, homage to all subduing lotus jewel, homage to King of Mount Meru, the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, abiding on the jewel lotus. All these and all Tathagatas, all Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions, and all Buddhas transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world, please heed me. In this and former lives without beginning, in all the states of birth within samsara, we have committed evil deeds, we have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. We have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions. We have incited others to steal and found joy in their thefts. We have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls. We have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds, have incited others to do them, and have found joy in their submission. Obscured by all these karmic veils, we sentient beings have gone to hell realms, have gone to the birthplaces of animals, have gone to the worlds of hungry ghosts, have taken birth in savage places as barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties. We have turned to corrupted views and karmic obscurations from having failed to please the Buddhas we have encountered. In the presence of the Buddha Bhagavan's wisdom minds, before their eyes, in their witness, before the authentic ones, the all-knowing ones, the all-seeing ones, we disclose all these karmic obscurations. We declare them, we shall not hide them, and hereafter we shall sever and bind them. All Buddha's transcendent conquerors, please heed us. We gather all the roots of virtue we have accumulated in cyclic existence through having acted generously toward another samsaric sentient being, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm. Together with any root of virtue from having guarded moral discipline, any root of virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta, the mind set on supreme awakening, and any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness, accumulated in this and former lives without beginning, within samsara, all these I dedicate them perfectly, supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening, just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly performed dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication, and just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit. I exhort and supplicate all Buddhas that I may attain unsurpassed, most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge in all those with praiseworthy qualities as infinite as a vast ocean, all the Buddhas supreme among humans who exist at present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared. So we have completed 3 repetitions of this main practice. So we have basically yesterday completed looking at Gampopa's teaching on the application of the 4 powers for the eradication of karmic veils, karmic obstacles. And also I talked about these karmic conditioning or habitual conditioning, the perfuming that needs to be removed as well. So not only when we create negative karma, well, likewise, positive karma, not only will the results of those karma come, alongside those explicit results of negative or positive karma, there's also negative or positive patterns of behavior that are established. So when we do purification or clearing of karmic obscurations, we're also clearing these habitual tendencies that grow over time because of us habitually engaging in a set of activities, actions that are productive of dukkha, suffering, rather than productive of sukha, happiness. So we looked at all of that. We looked at the 4 powers, which is the power of regret or remorse, the power of remedy. And I think under the power of remedy, we can add a footnote there, also the power of restitution. I think that point is something that we should include, even though in the traditional teachings, we don't see that explicitly. But the importance of doing any restitution as part of the remedy. Because if we don't do some restitution, if we don't reach out to whoever we know that we have harmed with our actions, our conscience, will have a hard time letting it go. So yesterday, I think David asked a very good question about what about guilt, So first of all, as the method of purifying, guilt is not emphasized in the Buddhist method. Guilt is not emphasized. But nonetheless, guilt comes naturally. So what do we do, So I think with that, we have to make restitutions. If we don't make restitutions, if we don't do something, specifically to address the harm or the wrong that we have created, we will feel that guilt. And so it's harder for the remedy in terms of the meditation, in terms of the practice, to take its full effect. My personal opinion, I want to be clear, Gampopa doesn't explicitly talk about this aspect of remedy. And also the original sutra also does not specifically talk about this aspect. I think in part it has to do also with how the emphasis on the inner work that we have to do ourselves. So that if you get carried away also, in trying to make restitution, especially if you're making restitution, not really honestly and sincerely because you feel that you have harmed or wronged someone and you want to help dispel that harm, but rather you simply want to be forgiven. Then again, it's about me. If like you're forcing someone to accept your apologies, that's not going to work. Now, another footnote here. In the trainings of Bodhisattva, there are various do's and don'ts that you can find. In terms of if you have taken the Bodhisattva vow, what are the trainings that you should pay attention to, that you should guard? One of the trainings, one of the rules of training there says, it is considered a downfall. It is considered as damaging your Bodhisattva vow if somebody comes to you and apologizes, but you refuse to accept their apologies. This is from the other side of this equation. If somebody comes to you to apologize for something that they have done wrong, but you insist on bearing a grudge, you cannot let it go, then it impairs your Bodhisattva commitment. And I would say, even if you can tell, or maybe you suspect this person is not completely sincere, but think about ourselves, can we all the time say with 100% certainty that when we try to do something, we are completely sincere? So if we don't demand that in our own intentions, we should give others the benefit of the doubt. Right? If they come and apologize, give them the benefit of the doubt and accept apologies. Because if we hold on that grudge, if we hold on that not letting go, then we are causing more suffering to others, and we are causing more suffering to ourselves. If we cannot let go of it, it harms us. So that's the other side of restitution or remedy, or an aspect of remedy is this restitution. But primarily the remedy that we're talking about here is the inner training. It's like this practice of the 35 Buddhas, or the practice of Vajrasattva. And then in the East Asian Buddhist tradition, they have very thorough and well-developed laying bare of confession or repentance. Sometimes that word is used, or repentance practice. Like in one monastery that in the area that I grew up in Penang, Malaysia, they will conduct like 10 days of repentance practice or confessional practice. It's called the prostrations to the 10,000 Buddhas. So about 1,000 prostrations each day, but group practice and choreographed very nicely with musical instruments, traditional chanting instruments done in the Chinese tradition. When I was a young kid, I remember my grandmother would go to these in the New Year's season to go do the 10,000 Buddhist confessional practice. Then there are various other confessional or repentance practice in the East Asian tradition. A combination of making prostrations to Buddhas and the great Bodhisattvas, as well as very detailed, like all these teachings about karmic obscurations, what kind of obscurations, from the more general to the more specific, and what kind of karmic actions lead to what kind of consequences and rebirth. So during this time, it's almost like, it's not just about confessing the past, it's also refreshing your understanding, your awareness about, kind of this year going forward, you have to watch out for, all these types of things that you could do that will harm yourself, that will harm others. Make a commitment to give them up. So this repentance or confession is not just about the past, right? Because the next power is the power of resolve. We also make a resolve that, oh, these things, I should not do. I see how pointless they are. I see how harmful they are. Harmful to myself, harmful to others. Why? Why do it? So let it go. So the power of resolve. And finally, the fourth power is the power of reliance or refuge. There, yesterday, I talked primarily about the need to know how to rely on the Buddhas, how to take refuge in the Buddhas, and by extension, how to rely on our teachers. If we do not skillfully, if we do not know how to skillfully rely on and relate to our teachers, then even that can give rise to suffering. So I quoted Gampopa. Gampopa says, if you do not know how to practice the Dharma, then your Dharma practice, it is possible that it could lead you to the lower realms. Then again, an important footnote, don't mishear that line and then cause you to always be afraid and terrified. It's like, I only have 6 bowls, and not 7 bowls, or I only have 8 bowls, and is that too many bowls? All those kind of details about, I'm holding my mala with my right hand rather than left hand rather than right hand. I go to the hell realms, and And I think it's not helpful, if we get caught up in that. And this primarily Gampopa is talking about motivation. Now, as for those teachings that say, 7 bowls, arranged from the right to the left, and mala, you hold this way, you hold that way. It's not that they are meaningless. It's not like they are pointless either. It's for more refined practice of awareness and mindfulness. And so that we do not do things kind of mindlessly. We do not make offerings mindlessly. We do not chant our mantras mindlessly. And so, yes, there are details given for those kind of conventions, skillful conventions that the Buddhas and generations of practitioners have applied and used in skillful ways in order to give rise to increasing levels of awareness and clarity. So now what I want to do is to now in this coming week to go through the 35 Buddhas, the sutra in 3 heaps, that main text itself. So let's go to page 50. At the bottom of page 50, throughout all time, all sentient beings take refuge in the Guru, take refuge in Buddha, take refuge in Dharma, take refuge in Sangha. So there, it is saying, at all times. So first starting with, I take refuge in the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, in the spiritual guides, in the Buddhas, in the Dharma they have taught, and in the Sangha here. Here, Sangha, we're not talking about you and me, okay? We should not take refuge in this mundane Sangha. Yes, we help each other. Yes, we support each other. But we are not proper objects of refuge. Here, the Sangha is referring to those practitioners, those beings who have applied the Dharma to a level of attainment where they are no longer under the power of falling back into confused existence. They're not full Buddhas necessarily. Then they'll be under the Buddha refuge. They are like from, achieve a certain level of no longer falling back into confused causes, into creating confused causes. But they're still working on removing whatever confused causes that existed, that were created in the past, but they no longer fall back. Now here we can go into, more detail, like, according to the Hinayana perspective, what level of attainment is that? According to Mahayana, what level of attainment is that? And all of that. Certainly we can learn more about that. But the bottom line here is talking about these are beings who have achieved a certain level of attainment, that they are no longer deceived by the mechanics of samsara. They have not completely undone the mechanics of samsara, but they're no longer deceived by the mechanics of samsara. Yeah. Now, one footnote here, when I use the term Hinayana, we covered this earlier, but then because, there are other people who join us, just happen to chance upon us on Facebook, I want to clarify this especially. When we use the word Hinayana here, we're not talking about Theravada. Theravada Buddhism is its own system of Buddhist practice, complete with its own internal logic. And in fact, if you study Theravada carefully, they too have the Bodhisattva path, even if, maybe majority of practitioners are not necessarily kind of encouraged to always think about, Bodhisattva path and becoming Buddhas. Nonetheless, in the Theravada system, they have a path on how to cultivate the Bodhisattva path and all of that. Hinayana, when we use the term in this context, is talking about the ground level, the foundation of our practice. So from that perspective, if you practice according to the Tibetan tradition, if you did not have a firm foundation in what is known as Hinayana, Hina can have a few meanings. There is a negative meaning of Hina, which is small and petty. But there is also, more importantly, another definition of Hina, which is limited. Here, limited to what? Limited to our own condition, our own situation. If we understand Hina in that way, then we see that, oh, well, necessarily, it has to begin there. If we don't even understand, how we got into this mess and how we can get out of this mess, and don't make the resolve that I want to get out of this mess, any talk about Mahayana, the great way, the great vehicle, it's all nonsense. There is a saying in Chinese, it says, it's like, don't be like, a clay bodhisattva. There they're referring to like statues. Don't be like a clay bodhisattva trying to cross the river. What that means is, if a clay bodhisattva tries to cross the river, it cannot even protect its own body. How the heck is the bodhisattva going to bring others across this river of confusion and suffering? So don't be like a clay bodhisattva. So be real bodhisattvas. But to be real bodhisattvas, we first have to really get it. That understand our own mess, understand our own condition, understand where suffering comes from, and how to put down suffering with regards to our own situation. But do that with the great motivation of, the more I figure out, the more I understand how suffering arises, how suffering ceases, how happiness arises, how happiness can be achieved. The more I understand that in relation to my own situation, the more I will be able to be good for others, good to others. So Hinayana Mahayana means this, okay? This is important to clarify. Now, here it's the Mahayana motivation. That's why it says, throughout all time, all sentient beings. Yes, of course, you cannot literally take refuge on behalf of sentient beings. Yeah, you cannot say, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for mom, for dad. They're not going to, suddenly, they are like at work or, walking in the park, go, oh, yes, take refuge. It won't happen like that. When it says, I take refuge for my mom, I take refuge for my dad, I take refuge for my neighbors, I take refuge for my country. It's saying, I am going for refuge for the benefit of all of these people. And poetically, it says, you visualize and you think all beings, dad, your dad of this lifetime on your right side, your mom of this lifetime on your left side, all your enemies, those whom you think don't like you, want to harm you, they are all standing in front of you. Then all friends and family is all around you. Then all people that you know and don't know and all beings are behind. so that all sentient beings who have been kind to us as our mothers, you think like that. Together, we take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, and we take refuge in the Sangha. Effectively, of course, it's you taking refuge. But to say that it's all sentient beings is also to say that we have to thoroughly and completely take refuge. Because we are, in a way, also all sentient beings. Because we are, in a way, more than one being. Okay, now I'm not talking about magic or metaphysical or, supernatural. Oh, there's a few beings, in you. No, I don't mean that, I mean, like, when we talk about all mother sentient beings, yes, there is objectively all mother sentient beings, but subjectively, there's also all the mother sentient beings that I experience in my mind and my heart. Those sentient beings can take refuge together with you. In other words, your perception of other sentient beings can join you in taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So in one of the very famous formulation of the Bodhisattva Vow in the East Asian tradition, it says, sentient beings are boundless. I vow to liberate them all. Sentient beings are boundless. I vow to liberate all of them. Second, kleshas are inexhaustible. I vow to extinguish them. Third, Dharma methods are immeasurable. I vow to master all of them. And fourth, Buddhahood is unsurpassed. I vow to achieve. This is a very famous formulation in East Asia. China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, all the Buddhist traditions that use classical Chinese as their basic language. Then there is a second part to these four vows that was taught by one of the great Zen or Chan master known as the Sixth Patriarch. He says, after making this, what he calls the outer aspect of the four vows, you also make the inner aspect of four vows. And the inner aspect of the four vows is sentient beings of my own nature, I vow to liberate. Afflictive emotions in my own nature, I vow to extinguish. Dharma methods of my own nature, I vow to master. Buddhahood of my own nature, I vow to achieve. And so this is the inner aspect, which is saying that, again, it's our own mind that has to be transformed. So here in this method, it says all sentient beings take refuge in the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. It has, even just at the very beginning, it has this profound point to make. In the original sutra, the word, it doesn't have take refuge in the Guru. It begins with take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And because of the influence of Vajrayana, then the Tibetan tradition inserted this take refuge in the Guru, in the spiritual guides, in the mentor. So the spiritual guide or mentor, there's emphasis to view this guide as so that the guide's mind is Buddha, the guide's speech is Dharma, the guide's actions is Sangha. So sometimes it says, in the Supreme Guru, all three jewels are present. Page 51, homage to the Bhagavan. Bhagavan has several meanings. The outer meaning simply means like the Lord, the one who is blessed. And further, it said that the one who has 6 qualities. Some other day, if we have time, we can look into these 6 qualities. But another more, I think, important definition, it's a way to unpack this Bhagavan. In Tibetan is Chumdende, is to unpack it so that it means the ones who have destroyed the afflictive emotions and passed beyond them, gone beyond them, and transcended them. So that is Bhagavan. Tathagata is the one who has those who have thus gone. Thus gone. Tathagata is thus gone, meaning they have gone beyond confusion, they have gone beyond suffering. But there's another definition of Tathagata too, which is Tata Agata. That means they have thus come. And what does that mean? Those beings who have gone beyond confusion and now come to us with wisdom and compassion. Or gone beyond with wisdom and come back through the power of their vows with compassion and loving kindness. Yeah. Interestingly, in Tibetan and Theravada, Tathagata is primarily explained as thus gone. So they emphasize the transcendent aspect of Buddhists, thus gone, right? Transcended suffering. In East Asian traditions, China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, they emphasize the compassionate aspect of Buddhists. So they call them thus come, Rulai, or Nyorai in Japanese pronunciation, thus come, meaning they have come from the state of transcendence in order to continue to benefit and help sentient beings. But in the Sanskrit, Tathagata has both meanings, thus gone, thus come. Tathagata. Arahat. Arahat is explained as having destroyed the enemies. Arihan. The killer, in fact, it's a little bit violent. The killer of enemies. What are these enemies? Of course, the enemies of afflictive emotions. They are the true enemies. Arhat. Then the perfectly complete Buddha. Here, perfectly complete Buddha in Sanskrit is Samya Sambuddha. Pali is Sama Sambuddha. Samya Sambuddha. What are perfectly complete Buddhas? Because in the sutras, you will come across references to Shravaka Buddhas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Shravaka Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Samya Sambuddha. Samya Sambuddhas are what we commonly would refer to as Buddhas, complete Buddhas. Pratyeka Buddhas are translated into English as solitary realizers. Solitary realizers often. Sometimes Pratyeka Buddhas are even called half Buddhas. So this is a Mahayana kind of definition of them as half Buddhas, as in they are halfway. Halfway compared to whom? Compared to the Samya Sambuddha. Compared to us, they are like, for all intents and purposes, they are enlightened. compared to us. So don't call them half Buddhists thinking that, oh, they're only half. They are half compared to Samyasam Buddhists, perfectly complete Buddhists. But they are way ahead of us in terms of their realizations. Then Shravaka Buddhists are those hearer Buddhists, sometimes translated simply as hearers. And these are who we, slightly inaccurately, we call them arhats. Actually, in the Tibetan tradition, when we say, so here it says, Chumdende de Shinshepa, Drachumpa, Drachumpa. Drachumpa is, those who have killed the enemies, is the Tibetan translation for arhat. There, Drachumpa is an epithet, a title, so to say, of full Buddhas. Shravakas refer to the disciples of the Buddhas, those who heard the teachings of the Buddha and practice primarily for their own benefit. Shravakas. Shravakas are not so much selfish, If they're selfish, they cannot achieve the realizations that they achieve. They're not selfish, but they are limited in their scope. According to the Mahayana perspective, they are limited in their scope, the Shravakas, as well as the Pratyeka, the solitary Buddhas. And they are also limited in their scope. What is the scope? In their scope of courage, in their scope of wanting to benefit all beings. Will they help beings? Yeah, of course they will help beings. They cannot be, selfish Shravaka Buddhists or selfish Pratyeka Buddhists. If they have the opportunity to help, of course they will help. But they are not, powered by this great vow to liberate all beings at all cost. Those are Samyasam Buddhists. And that's why here, perfectly complete Buddha. Then the name of this Buddha, Shakyamuni, which is the Muni or the sage of the Shakyas. That is the Buddha of our times. That is the common reference point for all Buddhists, is Buddha Shakyamuni. Then following that, the names of 34 other Buddhas. Yeah, and each of the Buddhas have a particular kind of ability to purify a particular type of karma or a particular amount of negative karma. And in our text, those are all given. Yeah? So we're not going to go over that at this point. If we have time later on, we could go over that. So at the bottom of page 53, it says, all these and all the Tathagatas, Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas. Here, okay, when it says at the 53, all these and all the Tathagatas, when it says all the Arhats, it's not talking about Shravakas, okay? It's talking about Tathagatas who are also Arhats, who are also completely perfect Buddhas. In other words, it's the Samyasam Buddhas, the complete full Buddhas who are thus gone, who are destroyer of enemies. It's not talking about Buddhas and his disciples in this case. Okay, so to clarify a little bit here, however many perfectly complete Buddhas that abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions, north, south, east, west, the intermediate directions, up and down. Please heed me. Please turn your attention to me. Please be mindful of me. Please look in my direction. So they are our witnesses as we uncover our faults and put them down, as we rejoice in our qualities and dedicate them. The other two heaps. So I said my own way of figuring out what the three heaps are, to combine the two traditions. There are two traditional explanation for what the three heaps are. If you combine those two together, I think they combine very nicely. Then you can say each of the heap have two aspects. The first heap is remembering their names, it says, and paying homage to them. So that means remembering the qualities of these Buddhas, and then paying homage is an outer expression of admiring those qualities and wanting to achieve those qualities ourselves. First heap. Second heap is to reveal faults so that we can see faults as faults. We can see unskillful actions as unskillful actions, and seeing how unskillful they are, how they are faults, how they are dangerous, pointless, we then put them down. We then let them go. We then discard them. We then abandon them. Second heap. Third heap, recalling and rejoicing in whatever virtue we have engaged in, especially with regards to the 6 paramitas. Even as minor as giving an ant a morsel of sugar, we remember that, we recollect that, and that is what we dedicate. Those two aspects. So this is the sutra in 3 heaps. Each heap has 2 aspects to it, which is 2 sides of this same coin. Yeah. So today we are going to end our practice, the teaching part here. Now let's do the conclusion of the practice. Please turn to page 63. Then after the dedication, I'll leave some time for questions or comments. Please act according to the pledge you took when you engaged in Bodhisattva deeds, and thus purify the negativities and downfalls of myself and all other beings. By apprehending your name, by repeating and calling them again and again, I supplicate all of you to purify, exhaust, and cleanse entirely the negativities, downfalls, and obscurations of all wandering beings. In these evil times, sentient beings' actions are degraded. Impure and unawakened, our minds are suffused with negative emotions. Our offerings are scanty. They are marred by stains and other faults. Please forgive us all these mistakes. Now the auspicious verses on page 64. The light of boundless compassion clears away the evil states and dispels demonic forces, hindrances, and hosts of wickedness. May the splendid power of the victorious ones, equal to 100,000 suns, bring forth the happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. The stream of nectar flowing from the immaculate Dharmadhatu space fully cleanses the stains of evil tendencies. May the splendid whole power of the holy Dharma of the cessation and path bring forth the happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. In order to eliminate the endless torment of secular existence, you have not abandoned the heavy burden of your vows and aspirations. May the splendid power of the ocean of great and noble bodhisattvas bring forth the happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. These auspicious verses here, the three sections, is basically Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Yeah, in case you have not noticed it yet, it's Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Now we'll do the Sukhavati dedication, dedicating this merit, our practice, to all the beings who are going through the transition from this lifetime to the next lifetime. May they not be reborn further in the state of confusion, but into the Pure Land of Amitabha, so that they can quickly advance through the stages of development and become Buddhas for the benefit of all beings. Ngosa sanje nama taye dang yesu jobo tuje chenpo dang yondu senpa tuje tom namla sanje changsen pame korgi kurdegi ngosa pakdu meba ye deva chense shawe shinkam derdasen dine sepo gyurmata kewa senje bama chuparu Deru kene nante shadon sho deke dagi monam tabadi joju sanje changsen tamje ki keme drupa jinji labdu so teyata benza kriya awa buddha naya so changju sem chu rinpoche ma je ba nam je gyurji ke ba nyam ba me ba yang go ne gong du be war sho. I want to point out this prayer in the Tibetan. Yeah, if you look at this on the screen, Ema ho ngosa sanje nangwa taye dang, Yesu jowo tuje chenpo dang, yondu senpa tuje tomnamla sanje changsen pame korki kor, deki ngosa paktu mepayi, deva chense shawe shinkamde. Then here it says dagni, yeah, in that next section, dagni dine tsepo gyurma ta. When you hear me chant, I will chant Dakshen. Dakshen dine tsepo gyurma ta. The original of this prayer is indeed, as you see it here, Dagni. Dagni here means, this line is talking about, and when I die, when I go from this to the next life, when you change slightly and say Dak Shen, Dak is self, Shen is other. So that's how you change it into when we go from this life to the next life. Dak Shen, Dine Tsepo Gyumata. Dak Shen. So just FYI. Okay, now, again, thank you for participating in this practice. Some of you have to go to sleep already, and some of you have to go to work already, and some of you have to go eat your breakfast already. Please go. Don't feel like you have to stay. But as with every day, I'll leave some time now to see if there's any discussion, any questions, comments, please. Yes, Rodrigo, go ahead.
Good morning. What means the phrase Teyata on Pensadriya, Awa Bodhana Yeso?
That's a mantra. Teyata is Pensadriya Awa Bodhana Yesoha. That is a mantra for quickly accomplishing the aspiration. There is some meaning you can, because it's sometimes mantras don't have very clear meaning, because it's different syllables joined together without necessarily having explicit meaning. Here, there is meaning. Pancha Indriya, Panchadriya is Pancha Indriya. Pancha is 5. Indriya is powers. Avabodhanaya Swaha, Avabodha is something like, so meaning is something like, by these 5 powers, may Bodhi become manifest. Avabodhanaya Swaha. May Bodhi manifest, become manifest. Please don't ask me what the 5 powers are. Please don't ask me what the 5 powers are. I cannot remember. I can look it up for you.
Okay.
I can look it up for you. But they are the 5 powers, quite common, this list. And so now you know how much I know or don't know, or how much I've memorized and how little I've memorized. It's the common known as the 5 powers, not like the 4 powers of the purification. No. This is like the power of faith, the power of like mindfulness, there's an old part of an old list. Part of the 37, not that there are 37 Bodhisattva practices, which is a Tibetan text, but there is a list from Buddhist scriptures called the 37 factors of enlightenment. One set is known as the 5 powers, the 5 indriyas. Omniscient Google probably has the answer if somebody type here 5 indriyas, INDRIYAS. Indriya, INDRIYAS, the 5 indriyas. Yes, next.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
In the part where we take refuge, there is a line that says, we take refuge in the Holy Dharma, free from attachment and peaceful nirvana. So we have, usually we would like to be free from attachment, but can you explain about free from peaceful nirvana?
This you're talking about at the very beginning, right?
Yeah, page 4.
Shiva Chadra Dampe Chonamla Kyapsu Chuyo. So this dharma that we take refuge in, this is the dharma that is neither, this is the dharma that teaches us not to be attached to either samsara or the peace or the quiet of nirvana. So they say that Buddhas are neither stuck in samsara nor stuck in nirvana. Yes, on this end of things, we have to desire nirvana. But even that, to understand that, if we think, nirvana is this like, 7-star hotel in Dubai where you check in, and then it's woo-hoo-hoo, like I don't want to leave, then you are mistaken. So in part, it is saying, like the Shravaka and the Pratyeka Buddhists, their attainment is not like the perfectly complete Buddhists because it's still partial towards the idea of this peaceful, serene, quiet nirvana, as opposed to crazy, busy samsara. To go beyond these 2 categories, to go beyond these 2 extremes.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
In page 55, it says, I have turned to corrupt views and karmic obscurations.
Oh yeah, we will get there.
From having failed to please the Buddhas. Okay. I'll wait.
We will get there.
Okay. Thank you.
In one line, or maybe more than one line, what does it mean to displease the Buddhas? That means we ignore them. It's poetic. It doesn't mean Buddhas go, ah. If Buddhas goes, ah, then they're not Buddhas.
Well, okay, but then Buddhas I encountered. So it means we encounter Buddhas, let's say in this lifetime, and maybe we don't recognize them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Failed to serve. More literally, we have failed to serve those Buddhas that we have encountered.
And if because from my Christian background in the back is what I tend to think is that there's this reference in somewhere in the Bible where it says that we might have encountered angels, and we may have even hosted them at home without knowing that they were angels. Is it something like that?
Yeah, you could say yes, but here the emphasis is we have encountered Buddhas and we have not learned anything from them. Yeah, the angel one is more about, that they can bring you good, and it's of course it's a poetic way, the angel, to say, be good to everyone. Because God sends his spies. Essentially, that's what angels are. God sends his spies. If you mistreat an angel, angel is going to go back and tell God, that was a jerk. He might go to church every day, but he's not nice to people. Yeah. Here, it's not so much that Buddhas are hiding, to test us. But that, in fact, even when we have encountered Buddhas, we have not served them. What does it mean to serve the Buddhas? So this is in the teachings, especially those of you who have been attending the Gongchik teachings, you remember we talked about this way back, where we talk about the highest service to the Buddhas. Like without performing the highest service to the Guru, in the case of Gongchik, because it's Mahamudra, without performing the highest service to the Guru, you will not achieve Mahamudra. Then it turns out, what is this highest service? Seva in Sanskrit. It's to apply the Guru's teachings to recognize the Dharmakaya nature of the Guru and your Dharmakaya nature to be no different. Next.
Thank you.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
It's interesting what Lucretia just said. In the Jewish religion, you probably know, there is a time when the Jewish people perform a particular ceremony, thanking God for leaving, going to the promised land and all that sort of thing. And the very end of it, the children are usually tasked with bringing matzah out to this ghost who appears at your door, and it seems to make it real.
Yes. So this is the function of ritual,
Yeah. And realizing that you may be meeting Buddhas, all of a sudden you wake up and go, wait a minute, maybe this is real stuff instead of just nice chanting. Maybe I am looking at a Buddha right now.
Yes.
So that I thought was really helpful to maybe go through your day and say, That one? Maybe.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that is also what deity yoga is about, you know. That is also what guru yoga is about, is to see the deity everywhere, see the guru everywhere, see the Buddhas in everyone that you meet. And in that way, it resonates with other spiritual traditions, to see God in everything, to see purity in everywhere, to see angels, you know. Buddha says, even in the Buddha's more general teachings, he says, you know, whenever you serve anyone who is sick, you are serving me. And Buddha said that. So like in terms of offerings, yeah, I can say that like offerings, right? Like these offerings and the offerings. Sometimes, especially traditionally, they draw a very clear line. They say, these offerings you're giving to the Buddhas, you give to the Buddhas. So in some traditions, you don't even use those offerings afterwards. Like you don't eat it, you don't take it. Yeah. And there's particular reasons and cultural reasons and all of that why you don't. And sometimes, you know, I feel they go to the extreme of like, oh, these offerings are for, you know, the Buddhas and for the enlightened beings, you know. Non-enlightened beings should not take it because they draw such a strong line. Yeah. And I think that's some cultural stuff going on as well. But at the same time, I think, you know, if we're able to perceive all beings, their nature as being Buddhas, then why not, you know? I can also offer this to others. Now, I'm not suggesting that, you know, that you have offerings on your shrine and then you invite friends over and then to treat like the shrine as part of your cocktail party, you know? Yeah, to say, oh yeah, enjoy, you know, take this, sip, 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 you know, munch, munch, munch. I'm not suggesting that. You know? But as well, you know, you can also sort of not so rigidly like, oh, these are Buddhas, these are not for Buddhas, these are for Buddhas, right? Because sometimes we then, you know, kind of like, Buddhas are so transcendent in that sense, right? Until then, sentient beings you continue to kind of ignore and abuse, you know?
Right.
So many years ago, there's a Buddhist organization in Taiwan. They were in their own time, at that time. This is a big organization in Taiwan called Foguangshan. Foguangshan is the Buddha light mountain, literally. Mountain is used as a word to denote like big monasteries, like a whole mountain. Foguangshan. The founder of Foguangshan was a very charismatic monk, Master Xingyun, still alive, in his 90s now. They have a monastery in LA, Hacienda Heights, Shilai Monastery. Yeah. Many years ago, he started to do musical performances of traditional Buddhist chant on stage, yeah? Like almost like Buddhist choir, so to say, you know. So he has his monks and nuns trained to do Buddhist chants on stage, right? So it's not like ritual, or it doesn't look like ritual, right? And it looks like performance. And at that time, you know, many people criticized him and said, oh, how can you degrade, you know, these practices and make it into like a show? People sit in the audience, and so people, you know, people's mouths. And I remember he said, you know, one time I actually watched, you know, this, and he said at the beginning of the performance, he said, you know, he didn't directly say anything, except that he said, since in the Mahayana tradition, we said that all sentient beings are Buddhas. And so today, this is an offering. This program is an offering to all beings everywhere as Buddhas. And if you have not yet realized your Buddha nature, may this offering serve as a seed for you to awaken to your own nature. Yes, so it's an attitude change, you know, that needs to happen. It's not the actual action that matters that much. Of course, the actual action, we can make it nice. We have to make it nice. The offerings are clean. The offerings are the best that you can find. You put your heart into preparing them. You put your heart into arranging them, all of that. But your mind needs to be, this is for offered to all beings who are Buddhas by nature. So, you know, when I lay out the offerings, when I prepare the offerings, when I go to the store to buy the offerings, every step of that offering, of that whole process becomes a practice rather than a chore. Oh, I need to set all this up so that I'm ready for the practice. Then you have missed the practice. The practice began when you say, I'm going to go prepare the offerings. Right there, it has already begun. Then you go to one store, two stores, three stores, you know. Doesn't matter, because all of that is practice, you know. Which reminds me to remind you, if you have a photo that you can share of your shrine during this practice season, please send to info@drigongdharmakirti.com. Yesterday, we got maybe 4 emails, or the day before, 4 or 5 emails. But please share with us the photos of your practice shrine during this 35 Buddhist period. Other questions?
Yes, Dr. Lai. About the offerings and taking them down at the end of the day, and whether one should eat them or use them at all, or just put them out. Is there a mantra? If one, for example, wants to take an object after it's been removed and use it, is there a mantra?
Commonly, you can do, if you know the Vajrasattva Mantra.
Okay, yes, sure.
And again, in the Tibetan tradition, they emphasize not using those offerings yourself.
Okay.
But give away in a way. But that is, you know, I leave it to you.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll say, you know, there's like very strong feeling like, oh, you should not eat or you should not use what you have offered. I think that is, to me, that is a way to prevent, like, you know, when you are getting the offering, you go, ooh, I like that. You know, like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice, like at the end this evening, you know, I'll have some flan, you know, or I'll have, you know, creme brulee. Then the whole day, you know, even if your offering of creme brulee is there, you're like,
But if I don't eat it myself, I can give it to someone else.
Offer it, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Culturally, they give it to like the wild animals outside, you know.
Okay.
If you ask, this is my own confused judgment about the situation. I said, the essence is, don't make offerings with the intention like, yum, yum, yum.
Can't wait to have that. Yes.
Yeah, and even to give to others, I think why they don't say, like, oh, give it to others, and they say leave it outside to the wild animals. I think it also has to do with if it is wild animals, you're not walking around thinking, ooh, those wild animals will think so highly of me. So there's also that danger of like, oh yes, I'm going to offer creme brulee because after that I'll give it to my neighbor and he will think so nicely of me. Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, so that offerings have to be really offerings, right? With no expectations.
No attachment. Yes.
Yeah. That's, to me, that's the heart of that instruction.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Because I've had people say to me, like more traditional minded, they're like, oh, if you use that, bad things will happen to you. It's like, okay.
Being it's my altar and my place, I give them what I like or what I love, and I give it to them, and I want them to enjoy what I like. Maybe they would like it the same way I do. So I give them, like apples, strawberries, cherries, chocolate. The only thing I don't give out is ice cream because they don't melt. They don't make them. Other than that and pizza, I don't give out because it makes a mess. But other than that, I give it out.
Yes.
I wish I could give them ice cream.
These days it's cold enough to give ice cream that's not going to melt. Other questions or comments?
Han, I have a question about if it's important for us to do the entire practice on our own. We're doing.
It's always, it's always, something is better than nothing.
True. Okay. And
that's all.
And when we're doing the prostrations, actually saying the names ourselves. Is that?
If you can, it's always, like if you can do this much, that is this much benefit. If you can do this much, there's probably this much benefit. It's very elastic.
Okay.
Yeah? I've given some suggestions in previous days, like, how to do the prostrations. If you can recite one name, do one prostration, one name, one prostration, great. If that's too distracting, as I say, you record yourself saying those names and then you play it. And when you say those names, you want to say it slow enough that you can do one prostration. You can listen to that. There's so many ways, I think, you have to. When you are doing it alone, so to say, it's between you and the Buddhist. It's when you're with a group of people, like if you're in like physical space with a group of people, then, we have to go along with what other people are doing. Then it's a little bit more limiting in a way, right? But when we are with ourselves, then we look at our rhythm, we look at our, I don't want to, there's always like, the best thing to do is ... And I find that when we just say that, people get intimidated and nothing gets done in the end. And then, feeling bad about it, and all of that is like, that's all counterproductive. Yeah, so prostration can even be just, heartfelt, if even you're sitting. Yeah. So especially if there's recent injuries, don't go cause the inflammation to arise. Yeah, just this, you know. It is said that even, you know, if you're really like cannot like physically, right? Even just using your finger, yeah. Yeah. Imagine now, you know, time of death is coming, but you remember the 35 Buddhas practice so well. You've done so long. Even if you're laying on the bed, you know, and you're just moving your fingers, you know, 35 times, that is the same as doing full prostrations. Yeah, so we should end today, and we'll continue tomorrow and the day after. And again, please email your photos so that we can share these photos. And then these, again, will be offerings to others. Yeah, we're offering visual, visualized, imagined, you know. When we share this, we show others. Again, if it's done out of pride, out of whatever, then it's not helpful, but it's done out of an offering to others, to inspire others, to allow others to accumulate merit, then that's really wonderful. And tomorrow I might be able to share some video clips and some photos of the practices that are now being done in Bhutan to go along with what we're doing. Chugye in Bhutan have made arrangements for on the last day to have a day-long, an all-day-long practice done by the monk in that chapel that I mentioned to you all before, the Seringma chapel. So at the Penang Bodhisattva Sanctuary Facebook page, as well as the Urban Dharma Facebook page, we have been sharing different images of the lantern offerings in Malaysia, the Sang offering in Nepal. And soon in Nepal, we are going to be doing, giving food to the homeless that are around the Bodha Stupa, the homeless, the beggars in the Bodha Stupa. Lama Ringzin is helping us find caterer to cook, to pack, and to distribute on our behalf. He said, you know, there is the basic, you know, food that you can offer, then nicer ones you can offer, and even nicer ones you can offer. I said, well, if we're going to offer, let's offer nicer ones, and not just like, you know, enough to eat, not to go hungry. We can do better than that. So just know that your offerings for the lanterns, for the Sang offering, that money is being used in many other ways. So then Lama Ringzin is also going to organize for feeding the dogs, feeding the pigeons now, because so few people are going to these places, and even the dogs and the pigeons are not finding that much food. So we're also going to be doing that. Yeah. So rejoice and dedicate, and see all of you tomorrow.
Rejoice,
Thank you,
rejoice.
Dr. Lai.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.